Viewers, late last week, the Israeli army entered Al-Shifa and took control of Gaza's largest hospital. The move was slammed by international aid agencies, several Arab states, many EU nations, and also the United Nations. It was alleged that Israel had committed serious breach of the Vienna Convention by entering a hospital that was catering to women and infants needing critical care. The IDF claimed that the hospital was not just providing health care, it was also doubling up as the Hamas area headquarters. The Israeli army claimed that Hamas had stored weapons, munitions, and even used the hospital as a safe house to hide Jewish hostages. The Israeli military, viewers, put up some videos, including CCTV footage to back its claims. But the self-styled left liberal ecosystem trashed the IDF's alleged evidence as fake. They said it was planted there. All that munition that you're seeing in Al-Shifa's various departments, they said the Israelis planted as they went into that particular hospital. For the first time, we are talking to the man who is the global face of the Israeli armed forces. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus puts out video bulletins on behalf of the state of Israel, updating the world on the progress of the war. Lieutenant Colonel Conricus was also deputed to go into Al-Shifa with the Israeli army to document how Hamas reportedly used the hospital as its operations base. Today, welcome, Lieutenant Colonel Conricus. You're with us on CNN News 18 to describe what you saw in the Al-Shifa Hospital premises. Now, I'm asking you, when you saw what you saw, did you discover it by chance? Or was it planted by the Israeli cadets just before you got there to incriminate Hamas?
Yes, well, first of all, good morning or good evening by the time that this will be broadcast. Thank you for having me. Unequivocally, yes. Not only have we found evidence of Hamas presence in the hospital, we found weapons, explosives, vests, uniforms, insignia, etc. We've also showed footage of the presence of armed Hamas personnel taking hostages into Shifa, right? So those are things that are happening above ground. And below the ground, we are already exposed, and we will continue to expose and deepen the exposure of one very large tunnel shaft that was dug from within the compound of the hospital, 15 meters below ground, and then 55 meters distance deep into the ground, which currently ends with a blast-proof door, but that won't be there for long, and we will continue to expose that and any other areas. And as we're speaking, Israeli special forces and specialists are operating around the hospital and finding new shafts and additional access and entries to the underground complex that Hamas has built underneath the Shifa Hospital.
Lieutenant Colonel, how does all of this link back to Hamas, all this evidence that you're talking about? How does it link back to Hamas, sir?
Definitely. I saw it with my own eyes. I was in Shifa myself, went there with our special forces in order to see it firsthand and report to the world firsthand. And there are military uniforms with the Arabic signing inscriptions of Kataib al-Qassam, the Qassam brigades, which is the military front of Hamas, and with insignia and patches, standard weapons, the AK-47 in grab bags that Hamas operatives have prepared in advance. So very clear, unequivocal proof of the fact that Hamas were, as we've been saying all along, using the Shifa Hospital above ground for their military purposes illegally. And what we'll expose and provide more evidence of is what is beneath the ground. There we have not yet exposed everything that we have. We will do so in the coming days. But you know, never mind at what level of resolution we look at the information, I think it should be clear to anybody watching and listening to what's going on should be very clear. Hamas has been abusing hospitals, schools, mosques, churches, and UN facilities in the Gaza Strip. It has been doing it systematically for many years. Shifa is just the biggest example, and that's why there's so much focus on it. But we see these practices. Yesterday, we exposed a mosque in northern Gaza, which also doubles as a weapons storage facility underneath the mosque.
Right.
That's supposed to be a holy site, and that is somewhere that we, of course, will not strike. They use that and abuse it in order to hide weapons.
Let's come back to Al-Shifa, because obviously this is the most talked about operation around the world. Now, you say that the tunnel was found on Al-Shifa grounds. Tell us what this tunnel was used for, or tunnels.
Yeah, to fully understand what the tunnels mean for Hamas, we have to divide it into three groups. There are smuggling tunnels that go from Egypt into Gaza, which are very big and large in diameter, and they are in order to convey goods from Egypt into Gaza, specifically contraband and illicit goods like weapons, explosives, and all of the things that Hamas need in order to wage their so-called holy war, their jihad against Israel. That's one type of tunnel. A second type of tunnel are smaller tunnels that we call attack tunnels or terror tunnels from Gaza into Israel that are designed to allow Hamas terrorists to get into Israel undetected. That's the second type. The third type would be defensive tunnels inside Gaza, which are dug deep underground by Hamas operatives, many dozens of meters underground. This is where Hamas operatives are hiding. The fighting continues. This is where they hide while they leave civilians up on the ground, exposed to everything that happens and the horrors of warfare. And these are essentially bunkers. Now, we have to imagine there's an entire city beneath Gaza, which is a city built by Hamas, hundreds of kilometers of this type of tunnel. And then a fourth and last type of tunnel are what we call a combat tunnel, which basically Hamas uses in order to pop up on one side of the street or an alley, perhaps fire an RPG weapon, and then drop down in the tunnel and emerge on the other side of the street again. So this would be more of a tactical type of tunnel. So there are different types, but the underground dimension of warfare is extremely important for Hamas.
Now you mentioned, Lieutenant Colonel, that the tunnel that you found under Shifa leads to some sort of reinforced door. What's behind that door?
Anything that Hamas wants to be kept safe. The blast-proof door is one layer of security. Beyond that, we can anticipate another door and perhaps another one after that. At the end, we will get through all of those layers of security, and then inside we will find the most important components of Hamas infrastructure. That is where seniors will be hiding, not necessarily under Shifa, but in general. Behind the blast-proof doors is where we will find the key operatives. It's where we will find the command and control infrastructure. We may be able to find hostages held in the tunnels underneath sensitive locations. It depends on where, but it's a matter of time, of patience. We have to be focused on the mission here. Troop security is very important. It is a very dangerous environment for Israeli soldiers to be in. It's a location that offers a lot of opportunities for Hamas to discharge explosives and booby traps and IEDs, etc. So we're approaching it with caution, using lots of technology that we have at our advantage, and doing it slowly. There's no rush. At the end of it, we will expose Hamas.
Well, let me ask you this. You're talking about exposing Hamas, but many people are saying that the evidence was planted, especially in the MRI department, as no one would keep metal in a room where MRIs were being carried out. Now, your reaction, because in that walkthrough, you're right there by the MRI machine and you're finding stuff behind that MRI machine.
Really, I want to respect people and their point of view, but I that is a bit silly. You know, when we are, it's one thing to say that when we were showing an illustration of the hospital, then people could say, you know, the Israelis, they're a party to a conflict and they're saying things about their enemy. I can understand that, especially if people don't like Israel. That's fine. But once we have, you know, been systematically exposing things on the ground with one-shot footage of the MRI center where I was in, and one-shot drone footage of the shaft and the tunnel that we exposed in Shifa 2 days ago, you know, and with the CCTV footage, which wasn't generated by Israel, we just were able to connect to it and show it to the world. I think that at a certain stage, people with, let's say, intellectual honesty and integrity will be able to say that, well, yes, what the Israelis are saying is in fact correct.
Okay.
Hamas are lying. Hamas are jeopardizing civilians by putting them in harm's way, by operating military activities from and underneath the hospital, and corrected. And I hope that people will have the integrity to do so.
Well, let me ask you. The Palestinian Health Ministry is claiming that babies and women died as you bombed Al-Shifa Hospital. Could casualties have been avoided, sir?
Well, there were no casualties. And I would like to point you towards a second correction that the BBC made. They've made two corrections in the matter of 1 month. One related to the incident at the Al-Ahli Hospital in northern Gaza that was hit by a rocket. The Hamas blamed us for it. We proved otherwise. And BBC were forced to correct that. Quite an embarrassment. The second embarrassment for BBC was that they quoted Palestinian sources and they also misread one of our press statements, and they said that there were casualties in the hospital. In fact, there were no casualties in the hospital once we took control of it. We did it with special forces extremely carefully, taking very good care of the patients there out of a respect for the fact that they are civilians and non-combatants. And not a single Palestinian was wounded. More than that, we, the day after we took control over the area, supplied special Israeli incubators, battery-powered incubators that facilitate the safe movement of these newborns, premature newborns, from one location to the other in hospitals. And I'm happy to say that together with Egyptian authorities, the Palestinian Red Crescent, and UN authorities, all of the 32 newborn babies have been safely removed from Shifa to another hospital in southern Gaza using Israeli-provided incubators.
There is no doubt, however, that thousands of Palestinians are dead. There's been obvious collateral damage. Could Israel have approached the invasion differently?
You know, this started on the 7th of October. We are 45 days after the war started. It started with an unprovoked and unprecedented attack against Israel, our civilians and our sovereignty. More than 1,200 Israelis were killed. More than 250 were taken hostage. Of them, women, children, babies, and the elderly. This was something that was forced upon us, that we did not choose or want. We are responding to it, and we are defending ourselves. I think that so far Israel has carried itself with significant caution when it comes to hitting civilians. Yes, I am aware of casualties. They are the unfortunate result of how Hamas operates in the urban environment. Hamas uses and abuses civilians, everything that is supposed to be protected and sacred in civilian areas. Hamas uses that because they want casualties so that the world will speak about it. Okay. But you know, we've been making real honest efforts to evacuate civilians from the battlefield. We've been calling on them to evacuate for more than 3 weeks. We have helped them to evacuate. We do humanitarian pauses every day. As our soldiers are on the ground today, we do humanitarian local pauses, and we allow those people that have in northern Gaza to evacuate south. Again, why? Not because it's because it serves a tactical purpose, because we understand that it is the right thing to do. The Palestinian civilians are not our enemy. Hamas is, and we intend to dismantle Hamas and rid the Gaza Strip of Hamas for the sake of the future of our children, but also for the sake of Gaza. And we are committed to doing that and bringing our people home.
Well, let's hope you stick to your words. Now, there is CCTV camera that captured 2 kidnapped victims brought into the hospital. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, these are 2 foreign nationals, workers that were working in Israel, who were wounded and abducted from Israel. And the CCTV footage shows that they were, one of them was, I think he was unconscious, so he couldn't resist, but the other one clearly was trying to resist as he was being manhandled by Hamas thugs, shoving him into the hospital. Now, the second one is the more interesting one, because he doesn't look as if he's in need of any medical attention, yet Hamas is pushing him into the hospital against his will, and that really undermines the claim, which I think is an easy and very predictable claim by Hamas, that they were providing medical attention to the abducted.
Right.
That is a lie, a fabrication, because if you look at the map between where Israel is and where the Al-Shifa Hospital is, there's at least a dozen other hospitals that are closer to Israel and would make more sense to take hostages to if the real purpose was to provide medical attention. It wasn't. Shifa is an important military hub. It's a headquarter for Hamas, and that is why they went all the way from Israel to the western part of Gaza in order to get to Shifa, because Shifa is a Hamas stronghold, and we see that very clearly in the footage.
So 45 days into the war, you're pretty much into northern Gaza. Where could the hostages be? Any ideas?
Sadly, they are held underground in very tough conditions, dispersed. Not all of them are in the same location, and probably all across the Gaza Strip. That is our working assumption, and we are hard at work. The men and women who are fighting on the battleground now in Gaza are scrambling for additional clues. So far, sadly, we have only been able to rescue 1 live hostage. That was 2 weeks ago, and other than that, we've been able to locate the bodies of dead Israelis, 1 soldier and 1 civilian. Sadly, we wish that that would not be the case, and that we would be able to have enough intelligence and ability to attack Hamas and safely extract the hostages. It's in work, and I want to reiterate our commitment to the families that we will not rest until their loved ones are back home.
Well, thank you for speaking to us, Lieutenant Colonel. I'm going to take a quick detour and hand this show over to Anand Narasimhan on the right.